In this video, we're going to talk about a frequency example from the OpenStax Statistics textbook. Specifically, I'm referring to section 1.3, table 1.13, and we're just going to rebuild it in Excel. So you can access the OpenStax text for free. You can look in the description of the video for a link. And additionally, you can get a free copy of the Excel workbook at divideandconquermath.com. Just go to the OpenStax section in chapter 1, or you can look in the description of this video. So in section 1.3, there is a table that talks about relative frequency and cumulative frequency. And so as an exercise building on from the green tabs that we've talked about in this workbook, I thought it would be good to just replicate that table so that you understand kind of how to build something like that on your own. So the only thing you need for relative and cumulative frequency is that you need to know what are the frequencies of each data points that you have. And so in this case, I have height data and I know how many data points fit into each category. So before we can build out relative and cumulative frequency, the first thing that we need to know is we need to know how many data points are there. And so to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on here where it says totals, and I'm going to type in the sum function, and I'm just going to add up all of these values. And so this is where the sum function comes in handy. And we've talked about in the previous tabs of how to do all of the operations that you just saw me do. But just to summarize all of this, so I'm going to have the equals sum formula, and then I'm going to select the cells that I wanted to work with. Okay, so this means that I have 100 data points. So basically now this 100 is going to be very important in the next column calculation, because relative frequency is now calculated by taking each category divided by the total. So since I'm always dividing by the total, that means that I want to lock this cell reference here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. So I'm going to go ahead and set an equals 5 divided by this total. Now, to make this formula as efficient as possible, what I want to do is I want to lock that 100 down so that that is the only denominator that I have as I drag this calculation down. And we've talked about dragging and locking in previous tabs, so I recommend going back and checking those out if you need a review of that. So I'm going to hit my shortcut button here to lock down that orange reference, that B10. And so now I can see here is my relative frequency of 0.05. And from here, I can just drag all of this down. And so you can see now that if I click on any one of these cell references, you can see that I have everything divided by 100. I had to write one formula once, bada bing, bada boom, we're good to go. So that's relative frequency. So next, let's move over to cumulative frequency. So cumulative frequency is this idea that these frequencies build on one another. So your first entry for cumulative frequency is just the same as the first frequency that you have. So you always set these two equal to one another. And remember, best practices are that you click on the cell reference. You don't want to hard type this number in. Now that I've done that, all other frequency entries are going to be the previous entry plus the current entry. So I can write one formula and just drag it. So I'm going to reference that previous entry, and then I'm going to add to it this reference over here. So I have these two references, and so cumulative frequency, you just always add that previous entry to the current entry. And so now I should be able to drag all of this down, and when I drag this down, your final entry should always be 100%, or in this case 1.00. Now remember, depending on how you want to format your answer, you could always take all of these entries here, and if you want, you could format them as percents. So you can click up here to have a percent, or if you want to leave them as a general number, you can do that. If you want to format this as like a particular decimal, you can also select, let's see, I got like a number here. So you can format this any which way that you want. So that is a little bit of aesthetic choice and what the book wants, but that is how you build that frequency table in Excel.